My husband is 35 years old. We are the same age. He is not verbose and doesn't like to show his emotions. Even if we have an argument, he rarely discusses the problem with me. Usually he offers some kind of compromise, and if I don't agree, he often just stops the argument and gives in to me. He always listens to me if I have a problem, gives me advice, offers a solution. But he never discusses his affairs and problems with me. I have accepted this peculiarity of his. This is his character. A man cannot be changed. Recently, my husband has started to be late at work sometimes. Not for long. For an hour and a half. Not every day, but still noticeable. And a couple of times a month, he began to stay for a long time. Once in a while, a woman might call him. I don't know if it is the same woman or different. I just hear what he says in the phone, clearly a woman's voice, but the words I cannot make out. My husband usually answers these calls rather dryly. He speaks briefly. Of course, I'd say, "Who's calling you?" Well, he'd say it was a business call. So I decided to investigate. I decided to be a real detective. My husband called at lunchtime and said he'd be an hour late. I decided to meet him. I drove to his work, and I got there about 20 minutes early. His car was gone. I decided to go home. I arrived first. I decided not to start asking questions. And I was excited about catching my husband red-handed. My husband behaved as usual. He did not shy away from conjugal sex during the night. He was as nice as ever. Just like he always continued to kiss me before going to bed and when he woke up. No coldness toward me. I checked his phone. It wasn't easy. I peeked at his password. That wasn't easy either. There was no evidence on the phone to charge the husband. The only correspondence was with me, his father, and the work group. Everything else was just calls. Both the man's and the woman's called him equally often. But there were so many calls that it's impossible to isolate anyone. I didn't think my husband had to talk so much at work. Well, I figured I'd catch him anyway. Even if he cleans up his history and doesn't keep the dirt on his phone, I'm still going to catch him off guard. I decided that I would follow up with him. The next time he called and warned me he was going to be late. I called my friend and asked for her car. I didn't want to drive mine. My car would have been immediately recognized and the surveillance would have been immediately exposed. My friend's car was busy on that particular day. I had to put off playing spy. I was very worried that I would have to wait for the next time. And all the time I tried to catch my husband doing little things at home. But he was too ordinary. Nothing, absolutely nothing gave him away. And then finally the day came when it all came together. My husband called and said he was going to be late for 3 hours. A friend gave me the car. I arrived at my husband's work in advance and waited. And then he got out just in time. That's it. I'm going to expose him today. Now he's going to her. I didn't know exactly when I was going to jump out of the car and charge him. He drove in the direction of our house. I wondered where he was going. Okay, follow him. And there he went into some building that looked more like some kind of warehouse. He came out about 5 minutes later with a huge box. Then he drove off again for a long time. A little over an hour out of the 3 we just drove. Finally, he parked again and went with the box into some building. He went through a door, but it was not the door of a residential part of the building, but of some kind of office on the first floor. And not at all conspicuous. The building looked old, and the office was definitely not presentable. I waited for my husband. He came out and a woman to accompany him. The husband looked quite satisfied. A woman as a woman, what did he see in her? I took some pictures with my phone. I took pictures of him all the way with my phone. I didn't make a scene on the street. I wondered what he would say at home when I showed him all the way. He drove away. There was no point in following him. He was definitely going home. There was no point in trying to get there before him either. He drove a much better car than I did, and I would have to go faster. I considered that dangerous. I called and told him I was going to the store. He was surprised that I was getting ready so late and said he'd be home very soon. I drove by that office and saw a little sign. I don't think in other circumstances I would have put that puzzle together. But here I was in the role of a detective. Anyway, I had an epiphany right away. And the whole puzzle came together. Now I realized where and who my husband went to cheat. He suggested a few months ago to get a kitten. I don't know. I wasn't in the mood and refused. Then he called me over the weekend to visit the cat shelter. To buy them something and just look at them. I said no too, because I wanted my husband and I to go to an event for the weekend. Yes, my husband went to the cat shelter the whole time. And I brought a whole box of gifts for the cats, probably food for them. I don't know what was in the box. Well, the suspense is over. Someone has already guessed that my husband didn't cheat on me. Maybe you just didn't guess about the cats. Read one more paragraph, and the story ends with a happy ending. Of course, I didn't confess that I was stalking him. And after waiting 3 days, I reminded him of his offer to take a kitten. And of course, he took me to the cat shelter. He already had a pet there. I did not argue with his choice. This story happened a couple of years ago, so now we have an adult and cheeky cat living in our house.